Rebel. I'm Shireen Thor. So motherfucking happy you're here. That's what kind of mood I'm in. Okay, so today we have someone amazing here. His name is Ronnie Jr. I have known this dude for days, like 7-8 years maybe.
Yeah, and they're all of them counted. All of them were very worth the while. In my book, I love
you.
The life coachness in you it spills off in our phone calls, our text messages, our hangouts. It does, and that needs to be said.
You're so sweet. And you can say tons more of that in this 30-minute podcast. I'll take it all day, boo. So Ronnie Jr. and I, we met. We were both doing some hosting at Afterbuzz TV 8 years ago, and he's cooler than me. He knows how to do like producer-y stuff and engineer stuff, and he could also be like banging on the mic. And
she's prettier than me, so we could put those two together. So we're actually a good dynamic duo.
That's right. It's beautiful. So I met him when I was actually co-hosting a show with someone who was just really hilarious and uncomfortable to co-host with. Ronnie and I laughed about it tons and then became fast friends. So Ronnie, it's one of the reasons I wanted to have him on is not only because, one, we agree so much on so many philosophical pieces around life, health, mental health, wellness, like work-life balance, all the things, right? But also because he's actually had a really interesting career and still has a very interesting career. And I know a lot of you rebels out there want to break out of the 9-to-5, do something different, maybe be a freelancer, maybe be an entrepreneur. I don't know what your jam is, but I know that Ronnie has done that for himself. So I feel like not only is the philosophy there, but the actual lifestyle's there. So it'll be exciting to get to know you today, Ronnie.
Thank you.
Thank you. So can you just, for the people who are not familiar with you, maybe tell them a little bit about what you have done in your career that's creative, that might interest them so they can kind of understand what they can learn from you.
My entry point into everything would have been radio.
Yes.
And that was it's so crazy how now everything's about content.
Right.
But back in 2001 is when I jumped into radio like head first. And it's weird that you talk about rebelness of it all, because I could remember back in 2001, I was 21 years old. So like you have this ability, like I'm going to make it no matter what they say. And now I'm closer to 40 years old. It's like, oh, damn, I didn't make it, But, it's also what success, what is making it, you're building the blocks to your career. But it's all so interesting to talk to you about these things because, it's a hard way to go, to try to be somebody, I guess you want to say. I think the job I was working right before radio was like bank telling, and at that point, I really did want to be like the top banker of the world. And there's like security in those things. So the rebelliousness definitely started when I got into radio because I was so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and I wanted it all. And I, over those years, really consumed radio pretty hard. Those first couple years, worked with a lot of really great people, got a chance to do on-air in certain markets that were very good for learning, not really for like, oh, you'll see me on blankety blank. It was more just like, in the middle of the night, 3 a.m, Bakersfield and Las Vegas, and Phoenix came later on. Riverside came later on. So radio was really big. TV hosting got like sort of in my jam. The biggest moment that I did was a contest on Fuse TV. I was the first runner-up for the Fuse VJ search, and I say that because it's just a contest. Like it's really not a big deal, but it was a big deal because it was live TV, and I could do it. I did it well,
Yeah.
It was teleprompter. It was IFB in your ear, and it's also the experience of like being able to perform when a national audience is watching.
Yeah.
So that was exciting to me. And I did, other little aspects of being on TV around that as well, but mostly just like broadcast and radio. And now on occasion like segment producing because I'm older and, I kind of want to do a lot more behind the scenes stuff because I'm not as cute as I once was.
You're adorable, baby. I don't know what you're talking about. So I know
those
you did
are a couple things. Yeah.
So I know you did a little bit of time radio hosting at Power 106.
The radio station, MS Communications had 2 stations. So they had Moving 93.9 and they had Power 106. For Power 106, I did mostly like the digital stuff that came after. But first I got into the other station, which was KMVN, Moving 93.9. And the great thing about that, same building as much of the radio stations share.
Yeah.
What was fantastic about that is I started there and then quickly began to be Rick Dees, legendary radio personality Rick Dees, his right-hand man as far as like on the streets, like, hey, we're going to check in with Ronnie. He's out in the city of blankety blank with 200 listeners.
That's so cool.
And I did that. And I did that for like a year and a half, 2 years.
That's great.
And Rick always showed me love. Like, Rick's a legend.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I know people are very much for the now, but like when I think about like credibility and resume, it's like it's very cool to remember. Like, at the end of the day, people know Rick Dees is a legend, and I was his right-hand man on the streets. Yeah,
I love it.
And he gave me a lot of airtime, too. He really only needed to give me just a smidge, but he always was like, okay, let's talk about it. You know, like, how's that cooking coming along? Because I'm a terrible cook, at least at that time. How's Mama Dina doing? Like, he started, like, really just identifying me as a character.
Yeah,
and,
that's cool.
It was a hard shift because you get up at, 3:30 in the morning, but I think the fundamentals are important to things that I do now.
Yeah. And I know that you and I have talked a lot about the balance between trying to like hustle and make stuff happen and like kind of like wanting more than you currently have, or like trying to get more than you currently have, whether that's a job or a certain amount of social media following or like whatever, right?
Right.
And then the other side that is kind of like, yo, I ain't going to be thirsty. Like, I'm just going to chill back right now and I'm going to just feel good about like where I am, and I'm going to just choose to be happy. And I feel like I love that conversation. I love that you and I always have that conversation, because I feel like there's such a difference between chasing happiness and being happy, you know?
Well, it's funny because I think I read an Instagram comment. It was something along the lines of, if you're the faker you are, the bigger your circle will be, and the realer you are, the smaller circle you will have.
That's so true.
And I'm not saying I've ever felt that I was fake, but there was definitely things in my life when I was younger that maybe didn't make sense for who I am now. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy that like I feel like I had much more, quote unquote, love coming in, friends galore, you know, as you do when you're in your 20s. And now I'm such like, I guess, rebellious like you know, such a badass that like I don't really go into situations trying to be anything for anyone else, you know. I mean, I was working as a associate producer and later a producer for the series at Complex Media for just a brief time. It was a short run series. They're still going on, but I've moved on to other things as well. But I remember like the old me would have said, oh no, you know, you're 36 years old, you're gonna go into Complex Media, like those are all the young kids, so like, you know, adopt a personality. And as much as it's good to conform a little bit, I get it, be a little flexible. I went in as Ronnie, like, you know, a little overweight, you know, my shoes weren't really the it shoes. And it was crazy because I felt like it was harder to connect with people because of, again, I was so real, circle smaller. But when I left, it was really crazy, or not left, but the show was over. My little crew, my little team at least, got me like a little thing of champagne and in a card, and all the things that they wrote in the card were very like, wow, you really just, you know, with the fun facts, and you're really like true to your views. It just made me feel real special because, you know, telling me, or even telling you like, you're great, it's like that's not layered. And I felt really good about where I'm trying to go. I'm sure that's not the question you really asked, but
no, that's perfect. I mean,
that's what it reminds me of.
You're basically talking about like authenticity, like being the truth of yourself, versus trying to be what you think people will like. And I think, honestly, at the heart of Awaken the Rebel, like that's the bottom line. Whether you're a mom or an entrepreneur, a creative, or a 9-to-5, I don't really care. I think ultimately what I used to do is try to be what other people wanted me to do or wanted me to be.
Right.
And that caused me a lot of pain and made me feel like I was not alive in my own life. And then I woke my little rebel.
Which I remember that during that era, kind of. I mean, I caught the tail end of the beginning of it.
You were there, boo, all the way through. Woke that little rebel, and then really started to peel back the layers of the onion and be like, well, who am I? What do I really want? If I'm not really worried about the noise, society, my mom, expectations, who am I? And so I think you hit the bullseye, Ronnie. I don't think that was the wrong answer to the question at all. I think that was exactly right. I mean, because that's what this whole situation is about, is like just really being the truth of yourself.
And not enough conversations are being had. Like, it's funny because I'm working for another podcast, or just even when I worked at Complex, or even when I worked at American Latino, all these different things, like everything's getting smaller and smaller, lower attention span. And while I understand that is the way of the world, I feel like stuff like this is more important. Like, we can't be afraid to like have the conversations.
Yeah.
So to me, I wanted to kind of go in my own path. Now with that, going to certain jobs and not having like the cool look, or not having like, you know, you have more experience, but you don't have like, you're not playing the game.
Yeah.
You do have to know that it's not going to help you how do I say it?
Excel.
Yeah, there's going to be an opportunity for somebody with half your skill set to come in and just dominate because they play the game. So you have to make peace with it, and it's a piece that I've made. And I didn't really make it when I was younger because I also was thirsty.
Yeah.
You know, my 20s. Now I'm like, listen, if I'm a washed up, etc., you know, never been versus a has been, I'm okay with it. Like, because I want to like get my life together. Like, I want to find love. I want to know, have that sense of like your home is your sanctuary, et cetera, et cetera. Going back to what we were saying just 1 second, it's funny on my website, you're of course credited on my website because as my life coach, but I did write the quote that I think really makes sense to me when I was talking with you a lot. It's from Rita Mae Brown. I think the reward for conformity is that everyone likes you except for yourself.
Oh my gosh, so true.
Obviously Rita Mae was an activist in San Francisco, probably across the nation, but back in the day. But I just really like that, Shireen.
Yeah.
Conformity will mean you're good. Conformity means your career might explode.
Yeah.
Conformity means you're giving the world what the world wants you to do. But like, I just really can't translate any money or any supposed happiness for like what that feels like when you're giving the world something that you are not.
Yeah.
And then you go home late at night and you're like, why does this feel miserable? Like this journey's got to feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
So that's
Totally.
what I believe in.
It's good. It's good. And I know you are half LA, half New York. And I feel like you keep talking about yourself
Half
like
amazing.
All amazing. Yow. And I know you keep saying things like, oh, has been or never been. But like the truth is, Ronnie, I actually, like from my vantage point, feel like you're very successful. You've worked with like some of the most huge entertainment companies that like people dream of working with. You've had producer credits and host credits, and you did all kinds of shit that people would dream of doing. I just think that you're at a space in your life where you're like really happy with being happy. Like you're not actually wanting to chase anymore. And I think that is a healthy life choice. You know what I mean?
It's a priority now because to me, like I think for the first couple of years when social media changed the game, and it did change the game, everyone could always be like, oh, for the better. But no, it actually changed it for the worse in a lot of cases. And I will see, I can't speak to all industries. Obviously, your audience is mothers and et cetera, et cetera. But like in what we do, trying to work in radio and broadcast and production, et cetera, it's like, the reward for just being like kind of quiet and like, oh, I don't really want to post on social media. I feel really douchey talking about myself.
Right.
And by the way, just in case anyone is like, whoa, he's kind of opinionated. How is he insecure about talking about himself? No, opinionated is where I go strong. But like me talking about myself does feel a little corny,
Yeah.
So that translates to my lack of social media. I was with a friend the other day. She got a new apartment in the Upper East Side, and we're in her rooftop, and she's like having a big moment. And she's like, Ronnie, I always want to roll with you, and I always want to like support you because when I did one of my first jobs, you were there and you uplifted me. And I said, wow, I didn't even know that.
That's so sweet.
And anyways, moral story, she goes, is your LinkedIn page like on point? I was like, oh, God, I don't like doing any of this stuff. Like, I want to just be about the work. I want to be about, here's my resume. I want to be about, let's, go on a meeting and let's see if this is the right fit. Like, I really care about the integrity of the job. And she's like, Ronnie, but like, you got to get on this LinkedIn. And then we were talking and she's like, Ronnie, if you let me do your LinkedIn with all of what you've done, I bet you we could make some stuff happen for you. And so I really, I guess my big struggle now, Miss Life Coach, is just like how to play the game, but also not do it so much where I'll go home at night and be like
feel bad about yourself.
Yeah. And I love how you mentioned something earlier. You were saying something like, oh, chasing the dream so much. I don't like that. I always want to think like, what is structurally going to be the foundation? And then when that kind of comes to fruition, then you could like seize everything. That chasing the dream thing feels terrible. I don't even like talking to people who are like, let's work, let's collab, and it's 2020 is gonna be awesome. I'm like, yo, what about now? Like life is short. Like things do happen to your family, to you, et cetera, et cetera. So
that's true.
Yeah,
that's so true. But what do you want, Ronnie?
And
I mean that not from like a thirsty like what do you want in your career? I mean like what does your like heart want? What does your soul want?
Okay, because I think it's more important to be focused on personal stuff, which I put aside all in my 20s, chasing the dream. I want to not be as like back and forth between Los Angeles and New York. I want to like boom, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
You know, host little get-togethers, little small dinner parties with people that matter.
Yeah.
I want to, you know, really just continue to nourish the relationship I have with all of my family. You know, they're all in California, and then so when I'm in New York, I'm sort of away from that. And I do feel like it's really a great time for me to like love myself internally. Therefore, I can start like loving others.
Yeah.
You know, so I just don't want to be. To me, the career is not as important as it is for me to like find like a great relationship, because I'm worthy of it.
Yeah.
And that has taken a long time to get to. You know, the worthiness of it all. You know.
Totally get that. Yeah. Dang, man, that inner work is like so freaking important. It's crazy. Like. Yeah, just love. Like it'll heal your soul and it'll like break your soul all at the same time. I'm only saying this because like Kenny, you know, it's like I found Kenny, right? So like a lot of people would look at me and go like, oh, like you're good, like check, you found your dude, and that's very exciting. But it's almost like that's when a lot of like work begins.
All right.
You know, so I totally support you in finding the love you deserve. And having like that life with like community and stability and just like being in one place. It does sound like you are sort of done with the freelance life. Like maybe you do want to just like,
true.
You know, like Brian has somehow found a way to like be in radio, but it's like a straight salaried job. It has like a, you know, specific schedule. So like maybe that's the next step for you. And I kind of love the idea that your friend's going to help you with LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is the least douchey of all the social platforms.
That's what she was saying.
It is totally just like an online resume. It's like an actual, like, here's what I've done in my career, and if you want to work with me, like, there, you could check it out, you know? So,
yeah. And that, even just hearing people tell you that, like, oh, that's worth the while, it feels good, because then it's like, you know, I'm like, you know, why does she go so hard for me? Like, why does she support so much? And it really comes down to the fact that she, in her words, this is not me, like, thinking I'm doing anything great, but like she has a really great job. She works for Money Magazine. Like she's doing it big over there. And it's like she could always recall like that first job she had. She was an intern, and like she said I was a shining, you know, beacon of light or something like that. So and she looks at me and she's like, Ronnie, I think you're doing good. You know, you're working on this podcast and you've just got off this job, et cetera, et cetera. And you're pretty happy. You're like a cool guy. But she goes, but like at the same time, like I want you to be rocking where we're rocking, you know, be it like at Money Magazine or just at that same level. She's like, you're like, you can do it. And I was like, yeah, but I really don't want to like reach out in that way. I like personal one-on-one communication. I like emails. I like phone calls. I like meetings. I don't like throwing it all online. So my mind has definitely been skewed recently to like, okay, that's there's nothing wrong with building a great LinkedIn page. And if it does work, it will probably be beneficial for me to get something like more stagnant, you know. Freelance life is just a little bit crazy.
Just a little too crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, like maybe it wasn't crazy in your 20s, but it's like now you're like, all right, I'm good. You know, like we did that.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, I know you're a person who likes to do like a social media fast, or like put your cell phone away for a period of time. You like to just like take breaks. And obviously I'm that way too. I literally do a mom's retreat where we do like a digital detox for like 3 days straight. So like I'm all about,
which I love. Yeah, that is
right, like disconnecting so that you could go inward and get all up in your juju.
all up in the juju. Does some rosé is involved in that as well? Maybe.
You know what?
That's the kind of jus I do.
Maybe this time. Just okay. You planted the seed, Ronnie. We'll do that kind of jus this time.
Perfect.
So yeah, so tell me about that. Like, what are your thoughts on social media versus like taking a break and all that?
I think a digital detox is sort of important. You know, I remember I was off Twitter for a while, and it's funny, like when you're off of it for such a long time. I'm not on Facebook. I'm just on Twitter and Instagram. Instagram being my favorite, Twitter sort of a favorite, but also I don't need it. Like Instagram, I'd probably do love the most, you know, or even when I'm paying attention to your stuff, you know, I'm like, oh my God, that's so cute, Shireen, you know, because people do post great stuff. But I like the availability to come off of it, because I think the way those apps are built, they are building them in ways to, of course, to keep their, I don't know how their numbers work and how they get their revenue, but it's all that stuff, right, that keeps you to come back. And I just feel like they're so shady, because they don't build it in a way where it's like to the person for the use of like, oh, this is Shireen, I'm a mother, let me post this, which is what I think honorably they should do. I think they build it in a way where like as soon as you post it, they give you an option to see, not an option, but they allow you to see all your likes. So then like even if you're the most secure person, you suddenly turn to this like People's Choice Awards. Like, did
Yes.
did I win? Was I second nominated?
Am I okay?
Even if you've been, and I know this because like when I was on Twitter and stepped away for all these years, it was about almost 3 years. I thought, once I go back to Twitter, I'll just be like legit. And I'm pretty okay with it. Like post a comment and keep it moving. I turn off all the notifications or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, these apps are designed to keep you there because, again, then they sell their ad revenue, et cetera.
Right.
And I just don't believe in it, and even and relatable to really anyone, a mother, a teacher, but specifically people that are, trying to be in radio or podcasting or acting or whatever. I think it's a little more healthy to be off of it. I always respect certain talent, singers and musicians and stuff that step away. I always liked Frank Ocean as the singer because, and he had, obviously, I think he had issues with his record label. But the point is, whatever happened, Shereen, let me ask you this question. Whatever happened to like being, leaving them wanting more, maybe on a douchey level, being too cool for the room. It's like we have this narrative in our mind that it's like, well, low attention span, post. Like I don't like that we're doing that, and the sucky thing is we're rewarding it. In a lot of cases, self gratification or career. Again, that cash me outside, girl. Whatever the case. We keep rewarding. Jordan Woods is probably gonna have a reality show at some point.
Totally.
The Kardashian friend or whatever. So I don't know. It mixes me all up.
It's so hard. Like, because I definitely agree with you. Like, there is a part of me that's like, it's what I like about it is the ability to share and like it neutralized the platform. So like everyone has a voice now, and it does create a sense of like community, or at least having a pulse on like what people think or whatever, right? But then what I don't like about it is almost like all the same things. Like now everybody has a voice, like everybody's saying something. Dear God, there's a lot of noise. It's too much noise.
Yeah, not everyone needs a voice.
Like, stop talking.
Like at some point you have to qualify. You have to qualify for the voice. You should have to earn it. You know, like how do you get to have a voice that's equal to J-Lo's voice? Like that just doesn't even make sense to me. Like she has a Twitter and you have a Twitter, and you guys are like so called the same. And it's the companies and the management or whatever that are like, oh yes, engage, you know, engage. And by the way, when I do wear my douchey badge of honor, no, I don't do that. I hate people. You know what I mean? I love people on an authentic level. Like I love humans. I was working a project this weekend. It was a convention for DragCon, and so on the which is a RuPaul Drag Race event, and the booth that I was working with was the great Michelle Visage, and like on the level of like the people that came up, I treated them so good on a human level, but like on this whole like, okay, I'm just giving a hypothesis, I suppose, you know, like let's say you get booked for the Shereen TV show. Well, all of a sudden, all the smart, you know, executives are going to say, Shereen, you should do a video that says, hi, this is Shereen. I love you all. Thank you. It's like, are we not seeing the bullshit stuff? Yeah,
you can cast. This is explicit. Let it rip, Ronnie.
You notice it only went to SH and then I cut it back?
I know,
I used to work in radio. So I think like, you know, I want to thank all my fans. It's like, I feel like I see through that clutter, but like for some reason we're just like about it, you know. I see more people that I know good and God well, like I know them for personal, from a personal experience, and they are not good with people. And versus me, I'm the one who proclaims, I say it right here on your podcast, I hate people, but I hate it in the phony way. You know, you see what I'm saying?
No,
like I don't need to. If Ronnie Jr. gets the new talk show after Carson Daly or whatever, you know, that was always my dream. It really was, to be the next Carson Daly. Oh, you better bet your sweet bottom dollar. I, in fact, side note, to this day, whenever anyone asks me what my broadcast style is, I'm not sure if that question comes up a lot, but I do tell them. I always say, I feel I'm like a mix between Carson Daly, Andy Cohen, with a touch and a sprinkle of Real Housewives of Potomac. Get into it. Get all the way into it. Yeah.
I love it.
So I forgot what I was saying.
That was so good.
Yeah. Oh, so anyways, if I got a big TV show, like I feel like it's so corny to like faux tell people you like them, and I stand against it. I really do. Versus, again, I worked this event, and I will tell you, every single person who we encountered was like, very happy. I spend time with them. Anyways, I guess I shut my mouth because I probably sound very like, oh, he's doing everything right. I do have a passionate opinion. At this stage, I do.
No, I get it. I think you're like the sort of like anti-social media culture, and I think that there are those people who aren't speaking because they typically aren't on a mic. They're like too busy like living life IRL in real life to get out there and actually say this. And I think it's useful information to hear. Because honestly, it's funny. It's like, I am 37. Because I was born in the 80s, technically I'm a millennial, right? But I really...
Oh, I have to leave the room.
You should get out of here right now. I'm just a total fucking asshole.
I don't congregate with your type.
Disgusting. But I didn't have a cell phone until I was in college. And I didn't have a MySpace till I was like basically graduating college, right? So like I'm late. It's not like I had a freaking cell phone when I was in high school. So I'm not that bad of a millennial. I'm like, and they say like when you're my stage, you're like almost Gen X, but you're also a millennial. So they call you Exennials. Anyway, the point is,
cute.
Who cares about all this crap? The point is that I think to some degree, like, because of my age, I'm supposed to be more like into social media and more into that like technology or whatever, but I'm just not. I think because I just have like an old school soul and just a respect for like truth in a similar way that you do. And so there's a part of me that while I can see social media for the positive things it does bring, as far as it gives me an opportunity to have Awaken the Rebel, to have a business, to share that message, like that's cool, you know?
Yeah, I love that part.
But at the same time, it's so much noise. It's freaking exhausting. I mean, statistically, like there is more depression and anxiety in teenage girls than ever before, and it is because of social media. There's like a direct correlation between people staring at their damn phones and having tons of anxiety, depression. Suicide rates are going up. It's insane, So like there's a part of me that's like, while I can respect the medium and think that it does bring something valuable because I'm not an unreasonable person, okay? Sure, it's good in a lot of ways. But there is a part of me that's like, there's just something wrong with it. There's something wrong with it.
And we don't know the long-term effects yet. That's what's interesting, too. And, like, okay, and so just to, like, kind of defend my own self, in the case of, anyone coming to this podcast, oh, he was,
This guy.
Well, because, there's the Gary V types, which we'll get into that in a minute because you like him and I do not. Or you could educate me why you like him. Mm-hmm. We'll say it better. But, like, there's, like, Gary V types that are like, if anyone wants anything, they have no excuse. They have one thing that we've never had before, this phone, so you could do it yourself. And it's like, kumbaya to you, dude. But by the way, we do not know... We don't know the long-term effects of what this will do. And just so I could sort of clear my name for those who are like, well, oh, great, Ronnie, you're just complaining about, the way it is. And what are you doing to combat that or whatever? Well, I am. I'm speaking on it, which is my truth. But beyond that, I just to let, like, go into me, like, I spent all those in my 20s, doing anything I could to quote unquote make it. I was a very thirsty person at that time. Mm-hmm. Big, huge circle. I didn't feel fake or anything, but big, huge circle. I felt like I was loved and adored. Mm-hmm. And now circle's tiny. But my point is, like, I was willing to do anything that it would take to be the next Carson Daly.
Right.
That was literally quotes out of my mouth back in 2005, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
Especially after I started doing radio and, all the different markets, Vegas and Phoenix. I said all that. Mm-hmm. But then you get to a point where you are not putting you first. Yeah. And for every human, it's a different thing. For two of the big, this will kind of just like justify why I get so passionate against this social media stuff, is that like two major impacts on my personal life sort of failed. And it was what it was, but I don't appreciate those times. And no one forced me to go to these places, but by being so thirsty, by being really kind of like what Instagram does to people today, mm-hmm. not being yourself, not being your authentic self, it made me, blow up as far as my weight. I gained, like 320 pounds. I was quite heavy. I'm back on the track to that. But no, I got down to 175, and that felt good to take control of that. And then the other one was sexuality. Like, I had never understood what was going on with me. It was more like, okay, like, well, like this is in the pit of your gut. Like you may be gay. Like, I don't know, but boom, boom, boom. Let's get into this career. Let's not sleep. Let's work. Let's hustle. All these things that Gary Vee is making tons of money on. Like, I was doing that when no one was talking about it. Like in 2006. I mean, I'm not saying that to blow smoke or anything, but it really was how fast I was moving, and what I'm saying when I rage against and by the way, then I of course came out, and life has opened up in many other ways. Beautiful person, and people love me too. But like I rage against this like Gary Vee type, and again, educate me as to what makes him so impactful, is that he's saying all that and he's like revving these people up. And I fear it is just from love. I fear that they are going to go into potentially pockets of well, let me hold back all of these things. And for them, it doesn't have to be weight or sexuality. It could be anything. Daddy issues. It could be, it could be the opposite of gaining weight. It could be, starving yourself. Whatever it is. When you force people to say, well, you have your cell phone, just give it out to the world at every, 14 seconds. I think you don't have enough. There you go. I think you don't have enough downtime, Shireen, to really truthfully like understand who you are. It's the difference between being in your 20s. Obviously, you are different with the children and the husband, but like being in your 20s and having roommates, and then being in your 30s and living alone. Like you're like, oh my God, this is lonely, until it becomes amazing.
Until it becomes like just peace.
And then you're starting to say like, oh my God, I'm not wired by anyone else's feelings. And that's the problem with social media, because you begin to get wired with like everyone's viewpoint of you. You know what I'm saying? Oh
my God, Ronnie, preach, boo.
Well, keep talking. There is a book of a guy, I haven't read it, but I would like to, who talks all about this. But keep talking. I'm gonna find it right now.
I love everything you're saying, actually. I think that's great. Because it actually doesn't sound to me like you're necessarily anti-Gary Vee. It sounds like you're anti-Gary Vee if people don't have the balance and the ability to slow down long enough to tune inward and know who the hell they actually are.
But is he so up his own ass that he does not care? So he's proclaiming and making you feel good. And I'm sorry I'm raging against somebody I think you maybe you do enjoy, but I'd like to get to the bottom of it. I was going to ask a friend, like, what is it about him? I feel like it's a self-fulfilling, way of creating his own business, and he really isn't taking,
totally.
And that sort of hurts my heart a little bit, because you're literally, everyone has a voice, and if you're like a celebrity and your role model aspects, maybe aren't the best for young kids, I don't necessarily blame you, because your job is to be you. The parents or guardian's job is to make sure their children don't follow that role model. But he is choosing to speak to you and all the, whether they're lost souls or they're complete souls. He's telling you, go, 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 go. And he's getting the check. And I just feel like eventually, we don't know the long-term effects. I said it again. I don't know. I just can't get into him. Maybe, he's not the most attractive man. I don't know what I don't know.
Just saying a tall drink of water.
I have no clue what's going on.
Tall glass. I don't know what the saying is. I'm not cool enough for this stuff. That's so interesting. Like, because I actually agree with everything you're saying, and yet I actually do enjoy Gary Vee. I think the reason I enjoy him is because he is saying, he is definitely speaking a lot of truth. Like, he is saying, you're going to die one day, so what do you want to do with your life? So there's a little bit of a
between that dash, 1980 and whenever your dash is. I get that.
There is a little bit of a motivational aspect. I love anyone who keeps it super real and cusses. He definitely does that.
Oh my God, by the way, just for the record, our friendship is what it is, and I already enjoy that. But when I do consume your podcast, or you're just when you did the Awaken the Rebel book, I think I dropped a quote in there.
Yes, you did.
It's like I probably wouldn't blow smoke up your ass either, but I enjoy this uniqueness of I'm a life coach, but I feel very real. I've actually called you, those first couple times in New York, where I was really so excited to have moved out there, but it's also weird, and I would always be like, oh my God, Shireen, I'm sorry I'm bugging you. Because I just feel like you're one of the few people that actually talks, and actually listens.
You're so sweet.
But to the point of the cussing, I think maybe that's something that he's doing it in a sort of non-professional setting that it matches, and you do that very well. And I do think if you gave me this nicely packaged hi, I'm Shireen,
and I'm so professional and square,
and if I talked to you on the phone and that didn't match, I'm like, okay, a little conformity, my gosh, but who's this broad playing this game with these people? I wouldn't enjoy that either. So that's all I'm saying.
All right. Well, as long as you like me. You don't have to like Gary Vee, as long as you like me. But I do see what you're saying of like it could be dangerous that he's revving all these people up and there's no like checks and balances. There's no there's no way to like help people have clarity around what their actual purpose is, or not taking it too far, not getting too caught up in the noise of social media, because social media, while it may be lucrative or productive, isn't necessarily healthy.
Do you think social media is here to stay at this capacity?
I kind of think so, actually, unfortunately. I'm not happy about that, but I think it is.
I think at some point it will be, but I think there will be a shift. And we got to think about like how we all wanted to be on MySpace, but like we loved it. We thought we would never leave MySpace. And while all we did was go to Facebook and Twitter, and then Instagram came a little bit later, I remember the general consensus, at least what it felt like, was like, oh, MySpace is becoming too like cartoony. And remember, because you could put your song, you could put your background, you could put your glitter, like it was a lot. So
it was a good time. MySpace.
Let me put my song up there. My top 8. Oh, Tom's in my top 8. How dare you? But
I forgot about Tom.
But because it became too much, we all retreated to Facebook,
which was more like, just more normal and neutral, more like collegiate, all the things.
Yeah, because we were like grown. And then now we're at Instagram and we're putting, and I've never done these two things. I've never done a boomerang. I've done a parody of a boomerang to showcase to the world how corny it is. So I moved 3 times and was like, like that's what you goofballs think is funny. Mind you, I have got a big heart, but I talk all the trash that is necessary. And I've never, I think I did once for work because I was working morning radio in Phoenix. And I think like me and the co-host had to do it, but I've never looked at one of those stupid apps and like put like ears on my head and a dog nose on me. Like, hi, this is funny. Like, what am I, 10 years old? What is going on? It's like the world has gone mad and I'm here to call it out.
I love that.
I mean, it even goes as far as like Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Fallon, you took over the legendary Johnny Carson when what he did, and we all know Johnny Carson wasn't the greatest man, but it's neither here nor there. But as a talent, as a broadcaster, and what they did back then, you have now turned and this is a version of a quote from my favorite TV show, Difficult People, which was on Hulu. Please go rewatch it because it's amazing. It literally feels like what my heart looks like inside. But there was something along the line, some quote that it's Julie Klausner and Billy Eichner. She plays Julie Kessler and he plays Billy Epstein. But the point is, she goes, yeah, and what happened late night? Over there, Jimmy Fallon has turned the Tonight Show into a 6th grade's birthday party, and we're loving it. I don't understand why we're loving it. That's all my question. Anyways, let's talk about something that doesn't make me look like such a jerk, because I do have a loving heart. I do.
I love you. No, I love your loving heart, and I love your like anti-culture. I think it's
Is that
fun.
what it is?
I think it's fun. Fuck
so
it,
I'm,
Ronnie.
so
Fuck
I'm,
it.
so I'm Awaken the Rebel, like exactly.
You're like Awaken the Rebel on crack, and I love every second of it.
My big Awaken the Rebel moment, and this is why I was so glad to have your friendship, was just saying like I always want to live in New York. I'm going to go, and I did. I went with no backup plan, and that was. It's not easy, and it's but I'm glad I at least did it once, kind of. A thing. Yeah. Oh well, in this case, like 3 times.
Yeah. Now you're like back and forth. You're doing your bi-coastal thing.
For now. Yeah.
Did you find your book?
No, I didn't find it, but we can put it somewhere. You could repeat it.
Yeah, you
tomorrow.
can just text it to me, and I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, it's something that I felt kind of compelling. Mm-hmm.
What was it? It was a book about like the phones and the social media, right?
Exactly everything I'm talking about, and it made me feel valid because every time I talk to people about this, they think, "Oh, well, you're crazy," or you're just making excuses for the fact that you haven't quote unquote reached your goals. I'm like, first of all, I'm okay with my goals. First of all,
yeah.
Second, I'll go work at a bank tomorrow if you need me. I don't like fame. Are we chasing fame? Fame isn't even at a premium anymore.
That's true.
I mean, are you kidding? You know what I mean? Yeah. I would like to do you asked a question, what would you like to do? I would like to either work on, like a talk show as an associate producer or a producer and move up the ladder. I still got some ways to go work-wise, skill set-wise to learn. But I would like to just do it with like a show that spoke to me. You know what I mean? Like if it was the Shireen show, perfect. Like, I love you. Whatever because I did a lot of radio, but then I did a lot of podcasts, but then I did some on-camera hosting, so I have that skill set, been on reality TV, etc. For me, it's more like, well, whatever skill set is necessary, this is a dream, I guess. I would like it to be things that make me happy or make sense to me.
They're like meaningful to you.
Yeah, like who's a talent that I really like? I don't know if she'll get a talk show, but from Page Six, Bevy Smith. Bevy Smith to me is just like a little bit of an icon, a couple things that really attract me to her, and I don't proclaim, I said this the other day, I don't proclaim to know who is in and out of her bedroom, but the point is, from what we know, she appears to be a single woman, never had children, and she is of a particular age, but yet she's living this amazing life, and I just don't like this idea that if you are single, and I know I talked about love, for learning purposes, but I don't like this idea that you are single or you don't have children, you're like lesser than. And when I look at Bevy Smith, I love what she does on Page 6 TV. She's on Sirius XM as well. I just really get inspired by that. So if, like, for instance, here's a great example. If there was like two opportunities at once, Ronnie, work in radio, but it's like a horrible market, and I just didn't really feel the vibe, but like it was like, oh, but you could be, an associate producer or a producer on the Bevy Smith talk show. I would choose that. That's at the point of my life I'm at, where it's less about me, it's more about what's going to give me the ultimate fulfillment. Yeah,
like like are you a part of something bigger and more meaningful that ultimately like satiates your soul versus like gives you attention or gives you influence or whatever.
Well, if you're meant to rise to the top, which I do think that will happen one day, even if it's at 45, I don't know when it'll happen. Just putting yourself in the places that make you the happiest. So that's the key, actually. Yeah. The key is, like, if I go do this project that doesn't make me happy, I'm working off resistance.
That's so true, yeah.
I'm working on a constant, like, resistance. So therefore, I'm hoping for the big victory. Yeah. If I go to the job that maybe pays less, maybe the position's lower, but I like, the Bevy Smith show, like, I like it, I will inherently be happy every day. I'll love going to work. I'll love my surroundings and my people.
Yeah.
That I think if you are destined to rise to the top, it will happen after that. So that's I love that question. It's so simple. Well, what is it that you want?
What do you want?
Where'd you get that? Did you?
Out of my life coach butthole. That's pretty much my go-to.
We're talking about buttholes. Well, let's start a whole nother episode. My favorite topic.
Well, I mean, sometimes often I ask. I mean, almost every session, honestly, I ask that question because, we'll get to a point where someone's like externally processing, talking about things and like letting it all out. And then we'll get to a point where they've maybe vented enough or talked enough and then it's quiet.
Oh.
And I'm like, what do you really want? And then they can really like go productive. Like, what I really want. Okay, well, what I want is, and then we start to plan around.
Well, that way you're not steering the conversation.
Exactly. It doesn't need to be what I want. I'm like, well, you just tell me what you want.
Well, and the kudos to you, and this is not about like, hey, Shireen. And that's why I showed up on time with Starbucks. Oh, I can't say Starbucks because, we're trying to get the ad money. Insert coffee name here.
That's right.
Whoever's throwing us the check. No, and this is what I love about you, and I actually said this to somebody. I guess I could reference my father as the bad example, I guess. And this is not me like harboring feelings or whatever. Like do what you do. To that gentleman, he can, he's fine, he's good. We grew, it's not like I didn't have a relationship with him, but I haven't spoken to him in a couple years. But the point is, I feel like what you do is really special, and I know your allegiance of people that are supporting this. They like it because, and I don't know, maybe this makes sense to others. Like, sometimes I get a little frustrated because I feel like I let it all go when it's happening, right? I'll let, like, Shireen, I want to talk to, like, it makes me this small, but I know me, and I'm like, I need to, whatever. Like, I need you. I need you, boo. And I hate this, like, this other way of doing things where people, like, put that in a box and they don't deal with their stuff, and they get to look like they're living a great life until it explodes. Yeah. For me, I don't go through that. Like, I'm really like, when I tell you like this, listen, this is what it is. I would, please, this is, an issue to me. I'm not saying I've done this correct all the time, but definitely in these later years I have. This is what I feel, boom, boom, boom. And then when I say, and if this can't be or whatever, I officially am done. Because I've spoke it. But see, that vulnerability is like sort of, it's fair to me, but it's like a little challenging because so many people don't do that. Yeah. I hope this makes sense to somebody who is listening to your podcast because, and I said as an example, my father is sort of the opposite example, and maybe he's gotten better over the years. But I remember one particular year. This is also a person in a different generation, but he doesn't deal with nothing. And one particular year, he'd gotten to like 3 fist fights, in 1 year. Like that doesn't happen just accidentally. You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point.
And so I always get a little bummed out that sometimes I share so much and people do look at me like I'm crazy. Like, damn, you in the issue again. I'm like, not really. I mean, yes, but not really. I want to expose it. I want to talk about it. I want to like get that cut, put the Band-Aid on it and the Neosporin and move on.
Yeah.
So that's why like when I do sort of move on and I guess I don't want to say sever relationships, but like move forward. I don't really miss those old relationships because I feel like during the duration of it I've been pretty expressive.
Yeah,
haven't always been that way. That's
really good though.
Yeah,
that's really good. That's really healthy.
Yeah, but good. But that's to credit to you because you're a beacon of sort, like a light of hope to that because you make me feel as a friend, but also through your work as a life coach, you make me feel like I'm okay to talk. You make me feel like you don't do the whole like, oh, compartmentalize it, deal with it, and move on.
Stuff it down. Stop having feelings, Ronnie.
Yeah.
No, I love them feelings. Ooh, dude, I literally did like 3 coaching. No, I did 6 coaching sessions yesterday, but one of them, the girl cried.
Oh, how does that make you feel?
I love it so much. I'm like, yes. And then I start doing that like Arsenio Hall, but I'm like, tears, 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 tears. Yes, yes, because...
I love the Arsenio reference.
That was kind of ridiculous.
80s babies all grew up on Arsenio.
Totally. Because in our society, we stuff it down. We're taught to be tough. We're taught to act like machines in the workplace. Feelings are not welcome. But the truth is we have a lot of feelings and we need to process them. And so whenever people cry in sessions with me, I'm like so happy because I feel like I'm doing my job. I feel like I know what's happening is that they're finally like allowing that cut to like basically get some air, breathe, put the Neosporin on it and get that Band-Aid because then it can heal and go away.
I love that. And another thing, Sharina, do you agree? I feel like it's also... It should always be evolving. Like your blanket rule can't be the same at all times. As in your 20s, I do feel like I compartmentalize. Now in my 30s, I'm like telling everybody. It's like I'm at the bar and they're like, Ronnie, what drink do you want? Vodka water? Like what's happening? But so to a degree, I feel like it should be ever evolving. I messed up. I didn't deal with, my weight. I didn't deal with my sexuality in my 20s. I dealt with just wanting to be on the air, super desperate to do it, was willing to do anything and did do anything to make that happen. You make those dreams happen. But like, because I stuffed all that in for so many years, by the time I decided to be more open and started to like express, I feel good. And again, I just gave a great example, but I'm also wondering now that I'm hitting almost 40, in a couple years, 2 years, about 2 years, I wonder if it's time to sort of compartmentalize again. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, at some point, you've worked your issues out. You're very happy. You've done what you wanted to do. Yes, you struggle with maybe income or whatever the case. But like, I'm kind of at this point, I think I mentioned this to you before. I know I mentioned it to my roommate. I go, yeah, I think like when you're young, you don't compartmentalize. Therefore, you like blow up at the, the snap of that finger, because you haven't dealt with your stuff. So I would say almost all my 30s, I deal so much that I feel like, okay, you're good. You're
like, let's put it back down.
You know what? Not everything that goes awry needs like a whole, mini series in my mind,
Yeah.
So I think what's important to what we were saying is like, just assess what it is, not to be giving advice, but just assess what it is that's going to benefit your life at this particular time.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right because everything's very nuanced. I think you're totally right.
If you notice, I don't call you. I call you and text you just off, hey, what up? But I think I have shunned away from like bugging Shireen about, hey, this is bugging me and because I don't think everything needs too much. So that feels really good and exciting and hopeful.
Okay. Well, if you ever need to bug me, quote unquote, which is not bugging at all, I'm here for you, my
She's
friend.
lying. I bug her so much.
You're ridiculous. Stop it. Well, this has been super juicy and delicious. We'll find whatever that book was. We'll put it in the show notes. I feel like I'm refreshed by your perspective because it's unique. You're obviously an independent thinker. I think we need more of those people in our world saying what they effing think. I think we do need somebody going against Gary Vee, so that just makes me happy. That's just coming from somebody who likes Gary Vee. So it's hilarious. I just really enjoy you. I think this is really good.
It goes to that point, though. Popularity. He's done no wrong, but he could do wrong eventually. And because he's popular, no one's like judging anymore.
Yeah.
We need to get back to some hardcore.
We need to judge his ass.
You know what I mean? If you see somebody with love handles like myself, judge him. Say, Ronnie, what are you eating over there? You know, like some healthy.
A little healthy judgment.
Bring back the judgment. I think. You know.
That's hilarious.
Can I ask you what you think about Jussie Smollett and his whole situation? Because that one sort of speaks to me a little bit.
What is that situation?
Well, the Jussie Smollett, the news where he was caught supposedly staging a what do you call it, like an attack. It was a big huge news story.
Yeah, but I don't listen to the news.
Okay, gotcha. Well, you're smart. You're already winning.
Educate me, my friend.
Well, no, it's just so. Anyways, he was proclaimed to have lied or whatever the case, but I just feel like there's just something more to that, and I feel like I followed his career for so many years prior to this, so it's weird that like everyone's jumping on the, well, this is what happened, and he absolutely lied. It's like, I don't know. I just feel like there's literally something there. I'm not saying he's completely like washes his hands free of all the stuff, but I do know that Jussie Smollett has been somebody who's been an activist for several communities, be it the Black community, be it the LGBTQIA community, the AIDS activism. It just so much of it doesn't make sense why he would have done something to make it harder for him.
So he was allegedly staging an attack on who? On
himself.
Oh.
Yeah, that's how the news reported. That's how the story and the officials, what
That's very interesting.
Yeah. But what my disappointment is, like, okay, while I judged, Gary Vee just kind of on a lighter, no surface level,
just general judgment.
I would love it. I would love it if we all start trying, and maybe this is just being supportive of Jussie Smollett, because I had heard him on 100 podcasts prior to all of this, and watched him on Empire, and just really liked the way he was actually a beacon of hope, actually, to me. He really was he was like, wow, this is a queer man, he's just out here doing it, but he's living his best life, like this, none of this makes sense. And so it's just like really tough for all. It's interesting that like, because Twitter is so demanding and Instagram is so demanding, like it's just like, nope, period, point blank, he staged the attack. And I'm like, okay, maybe some wrongdoing, but let's get to the bottom of it, because he's all, his actions don't even equate to this, like, so. Well,
I'm sorry I couldn't really weigh in on that because I'm totally out of the know. But thank you for educating me on a new story. That's very interesting.
I mean, it's an older story now, but it was something that was a bit passionate to me, because we don't have a lot of like uplifting queer, like men of color, that are just like out there doing a great positive job. Like he was a role model to those who knew him. Not everyone knew him. Once this happened, he became, sitting down with Robin Roberts, like, national story. My point is, it saddens me because there isn't like that. He was filling that void. Yeah. And now we sort of lost that. So we'll have to have another person like rise to that. Because I'm very passionate about all LGBTQIA stories. In this age, we're completely open and okay, but things are still happening. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of hatred in the world. So that's to your other question. What would I like to do? Is be involved with stuff like that, things that matter. I think I'm actually going to be working a trans march or event coming up just to support a colleague of mine also.
That's so cool.
Who's going to be there. Yeah, we're all human, so we just want to win. Yeah. We just want to live.
Activism, baby.
Just want to be happy.
Social justice. I like it. Resist.
Oh my gosh, she put her y'all.
I need to calm down.
She put her fist up. What kind of coffee did I get to you?
Some really good stuff. All right, Ronnie, where can my people find you if they're like feeling your vibes and they want to find you? Where you at?
Well, that's the problem. Don't try to follow me. No. Oh God, this is a part of any show I hate. But it is actually cute. So we'll do that.
Okay.
I named this name back when Chelsea Handler had the Chelsea Handler TV show, and then it switched to Chelsea Lately, which was around the same time, kind of the same time as the Kardashians show started, and it was called Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And I was like, oh, things that like are really catchy and really like, have a little zhuzh to them is going to work. So I proclaimed, and my website is randomlyronniejr.com. So yes, my Instagram is randomlyrj, because I'm always thinking big picture. maybe who's to say the talk show that I'm talking about isn't my own? You know what I mean?
Right?
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And I also got to say J-Lo is the best. And I'm loving Janet Jackson on tour and being over a certain age and having the child and just rocking it out. Yep.
So I was going to say earlier, I was going to educate them on your love for J-Lo. But when you mentioned that, like, this regular ass Joe has a Twitter and so does J-Lo, like, how are they on the same level? I was going to say, so just so everybody knows, Ronnie's obsessed with J-Lo. She's like his favorite woman on the planet. But I'm glad you said it because now they know.
Well, because it goes to rebelness, awaken the rebel. Like J-Lo, I say this all the time. J-Lo, if she would have been working at the Target down the street, she'd still be internally as badass as she is. And we have to
Jenny
see
from
that.
the block.
Yeah, and I don't like this whole, well, Jen, she's mean. Oh, if you met her, you wouldn't like her. I don't think J-Lo owes me anything. I'm consuming her art. She's not like, I understand, think the fans, I get it. But like, I'm consuming her art.
Yeah.
So
you're like, she don't owe me nothing. She could be mean all day. I like it.
Well, I'll be like, you want to marry me?
You want to be mean to me, girl? I turn straight for your ass.
Oh my God.
No, too much.
What
Okay.
about that high-pitched voice Shereen gave us? That was good. I like it. Do it again. Do it again.
Turn black in a hot second.
Oh my God. What in the problematic is happening right now?
Look, I'm Egyptian. I'm like, nobody knows if I'm black or white, so I could really play any card. I could sound like a Valley girl. I could sound like a black girl. And like, it's not politically incorrect either way. So, I'm just having a good time here. Right?
Yes. Can I ask you a question? What is that like? I mean, or is it even a thing? Raising your children, because, interracial children. Is that even a thing? Or how does that feel?
I mean, I think that I grew up pretty whitewashed. You know what I mean? Like, I just grew up around a lot of white people.
You yourself.
Yeah, so it's not odd to me to be married to a white man. But it is interesting for the kids to be half Egyptian and half white because I do have this fear that they're not going to be in touch with their culture. I do have a fear that, like, it's just going to wash away like it never existed. And I feel like it's such a big part of who I am. And, like, the food and the language and the love and, like, really even the love language, the way they express, like, everything. So I'm like, So there is a little something interesting there. But personally, I've always grown up racially ambiguous, just myself.
Okay, I can see that.
So in a weird way, it's like I feel free from... I just don't. I mean, one time when I was in high school, somebody called me a sand nigger. It just like didn't faze me. Like, I don't care because I'm just like, I don't know. It just doesn't. I don't know. It's kind of weird. And it was cool to be Egyptian before 9/11. It was like the coolest, sexiest, the beginning of civilization. After 9/11, it became like, ooh, dark. You're gonna bomb us. So I don't know. The whole
oh really?
Oh yeah. It became like, oh, Egyptians bomb people. Whereas before that, I remember people were just.
Were you like in high school when this happened? I mean,
I was in college when 9/11 happened. And before 9/11, it was like everyone was just enamored that I was Egyptian. That it was just like the beginning of civilization, the coolest thing in the world. After 9/11, it became like, oops, like you don't really want them to know what you are.
Isn't it crazy how when you listen to stories, you could be educated? I actually kind of, from you saying that, I do, because around that time I was like just probably, I'm a couple years older. So like I was in my, 19, 20. Yeah. And all of my friends, when we were all straight, I suppose.
At the time.
But my point is like, yes. The dudes like loved, oh, look at her. Oh, and not even in a bad way. But and you're right. I see. This is why it's important to listen because I would have never realized the point of view from your, who you are, even just visually of what that big event did. The way people treated you.
Yeah.
I would have never really like got that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, it was real. Like right after it happened, my friend's uncle who owned like a little Middle Eastern market got shot. Like it got real really fast. This wasn't like a story I heard on the news. It was like my friend's uncle. It was like, oh shit. Like this is really scary. So then, I don't know. Yeah. But you know me, I try not to be fear driven. And I also... like being a person who's a free thinker and kind of like rebel-y, I also don't subscribe to like social norms. So I'm like, I don't even really care what color I am. I really don't. Like, I don't care. Like brown, black, white, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. That may offend someone though. Like I do care that I would offend someone. I don't want to offend other people. But at the same time, I really like feeling free more than I like saying things right or being political. So I sort of like I'm picking my poison kind of a thing,
My friend, she's a relationship expert, Spicy Mari. I've told you.
Oh, I know about her.
You've never met, but like, yeah, we've, anyways, we've talked of her. She's a great friend of mine. She's Blaxican, and she said, and I love this quote, she goes, people want to know what you are so they know how to treat you, which is like the biggest, like layered, like, whoa. And I think what you said is very interesting. Like, oh, I worry because I grew up in a certain way, and how will my kids get that culture? That is a very universal challenge. You know what I mean? Because you want to not be defined by anything, but you also want to make sure things do trickle down. I was watching the movie recently. I've seen it like 4 times because I really love it. Crazy Rich Asians, and I do see it.
So good. Yeah.
It's so good. But I see it as a human thing, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh yes, this is like literally a aspect of like being, mixing in the American culture.
Yeah.
And does that make you not this enough, et cetera, et cetera? Which, by the way, I think I'm getting over this, and this is not a big issue per se, but I don't know Spanish, and when I was younger, I really had, and especially when I came out, there was times when I was trying to get into radio or broadcast or whatever, and everything is about selling yourself. I would always be like, I really don't know if it's beneficial for me to give my boxes. Yeah, because it's like, if I said Mexican American, if I said gay, I feel like they literally would think an entirely different human being.
Yeah.
And then I get like down and out, like, oh my God, am I not doing my community justice? But it's like, no, you're your own version. And just because I don't think I have a gigantic fashion sense. You know what I mean? I don't do the things that they put on television. So if I went into a casting, they'd be like, oh, we're casting a gay character. Like, it's going to be hard for me to do that. Not that I can't sissy it out when I need to or when I'm drinking, and the same thing with like the Mexican culture, in the regards of like, oh, hey, Ronnie, there's this radio program. We want to add another personality, what are your stats, so to speak? Yeah. It's like, I really can't really say Mexican American because it's like, oh, but you don't like tacos, you don't like the Dodgers, Los Doyers, sometimes it's like, yo, we just got to let us be us. Anyways, this is 2 racial conversations.
Yeah, it's good.
But it just goes to show that we're all valid because we're all human first. Thank you.
I like that. It's beautiful. Resist. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
She's doing her own march right now.
Thank you, though. No, this was such an interesting podcast. I feel like we went on all kinds of different subjects. It was very dynamic. This was wonderfully entertaining and fulfilling for me. I hope it was also wonderfully fulfilling and entertaining for the listeners. I'm sure it was. Thank you, Ronnie, for being with us today.
You're welcome.
Before you go, is there any little just piece of advice, thought, quote, anything you want to leave our people with before you go?
Whatever it is that you're doing, my mother's side of the family is educators mostly. My father's side are dock workers. I would say, and for me, it's been media. I've got 2 cousins, one on my father's side, one on my mother's side, that are in somewhat the arts as well. Not the radio's even the arts, but you know what I'm saying.
It is, yeah.
I will say this. Because a lot of people are phoning it in, and again, as we were saying, we're letting that happen. So if it is education that you're going to go into, just keep learning, keep really know what you're talking about, support it. I was watching an interview with Andre Leon Talley, the fashion icon, and I don't know what is it Chanel is the brand or Coco Chanel's the girl? Well,
yeah, Coco Chanel's the girl and Chanel's the brand. Yeah,
he said this, and I was watching this in an interview just recently about a year ago when his documentary came out. Very good documentary, by the way. He said it's not enough. So this is what he said. So my quote is what his is do your research. It's literally the end of the quote. But what he said to the interviewer, he was like, if you want to get into fashion, let's say that's your thing. It's not enough to know about Chanel's little black dress. You should know about Coco Chanel and which bistro she was having lunch at and who she was in the bedroom with, whatever. It's kind of tacky, not tacky, but it's salacious and it's fun and it's cute. But it's it made me open my mind. I'm like, yeah, it's not enough. It is not enough to say, I want to do radio. I want to do podcasting. It's let's learn. So just literally research. That would be my number one thing.
That's so cool. And just to kind of back you up on that, you are accidentally hitting on a few things that fall into the category of positive psychology, as in research-based information. So one thing you said earlier was, if you could pick a show, whether it was the one that would give you tons of notoriety, but you'd be in resistance to it because you're not in love with the mission behind it, versus one that actually makes you happy, you said you would pick the one that makes you happy. And there is actually research that says happy people are more successful. So if you pick things that make you happy, then you actually will become more successful. That's statistics.
Wow,
okay?
I like that.
Also, what did you just say? You just said, don't phone it in. Keep learning. Another thing in positive psychology is actually that when you continue to learn, when you continue your education, it's actually one of the things that continues to enhance your happiness and make you thrive in life. So, Ronnie's just dropping some serious wisdom and knowledge. I mean, he knows it, but now he knows it's also backed by research.
And I'll do my due diligence to get better on social media. I know it will help the career. I get it. I'll get on LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera. But like, I think what you should do is like let's take these social media these are like bonuses, and let's not live by them. Let's use them and let's enjoy them, but let's not live by them. What we should do is kind of think about yesteryear. Yesteryear, if you think about it, I was watching the movie Grey Gardens the other day, and it's all about like performance. You know what I mean? It's like, what do you bring to the table? Let's go back to the days, and I know this is more of like a refined thing. It's more of a class thing, but like dinner parties were a thing back in the day. They still are, but they were a thing. If you go to a dinner party, any like really upscale, or not even upscale, but just like an enriched experience, like you can't go to the dinner party like singularly faceted. You have to come with some stuff. And so when Andre Leon Talley, who's amazing, when he talks about do the research and he says it so intently, I'm like, oh, that's what it is. It means don't walk in that door acting like you don't know anything. Like when I met the people that were here today, I just wanted to be engaged and motivate and stuff of that nature. So anyways, I'm done. I'm so sorry I blabbed. Are you kidding? This is too much fun. Thank you for being here today. It's been a total and absolute pleasure. For those of you listening, check him out at randomlyronniejr.com, on Instagram at randomlyrj, and holler at us, thewakeningrebel.com. Go ahead and rate us 5 stars. But honestly, if you don't want to put 5 stars, then don't rate us, boo. And then share it if you think there's somebody who might like it. All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.